Hello, gorgeous. Welcome to HG Radio, everything beauty, cancer, and inspiration. Here is your co-founder and host, Kim Becker.
Hello, gorgeous, and thank you for joining us today. I'm your host, Kim Becker, and this is Hello, Gorgeous, everything beauty, cancer, and inspiration on Society Bites Radio for social interaction for your mind and soul. My guest today is a friend of mine that I don't get to see nearly often enough, Dr. Christine, who's also known as the Digestion Doctor. Hi, Dr. Christine. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Kim. Thanks for having me. Hello, everyone.
I'm so excited to have you here. So tell us, I need to know a little bit about, and I don't know that I remember. Well, first of all, how long have we known each other now?
Oh, it's been at least 4 years, I believe, because one of my little reminder photos popped up in Facebook where we met at a mutual business coaching type, marketing type conference in Texas. That's when we first met.
That's when
your,
we first
your
met.
laughter is infectious, and that's why I couldn't get enough of it.
Well, thank you. Oh, I so enjoyed. That was such a great weekend, and I'm so grateful that we've been able to connect, and I love what you do. So let's go back. Let's tell the listeners a little bit about you. So you are a chiropractor, correct?
Exactly. That's my first love.
That's your first love. So tell me a little bit about how long have you been doing that? How did you get into the practice of chiropractic?
So I've been a chiro it'll come up on 20 years at the end of the month, believe it or not. 20 years. That time went by in a flash. And, like probably a lot of people, I didn't really know what chiropractic was really all about until my brother was dating a girl who worked in a chiropractic office. And that's the only reason why I probably even gave it the time of day, because I thought I knew everything back when I was in my early 20s.
Don't we all?
Right, don't we all? Because I thought chiropractic was a bunch of quackery and nonsense, but because my brother was dating this girl, he's like, no, Chrissy, listen to me. This is what chiropractic is. You've got a spine, and your spine houses your nervous system, and those nerves, they go out to your organs and tissues and muscles and cells, and they electrify them. They tell them how to work. They animate them. And I'm like, that makes total sense. Why do I not think that that's what chiropractic really is? Anyway, long story short, so I started going to the chiropractor at the age of 24. College student, broke, paying out of my own pocket for private pay, driving 45 minutes each way. But I was into it, and my vision started to improve. The lower abdominal pain I would have went away. I would have really painful cramps during my cycle. That was all gone. And as luck would have it, the company I was working for at the time, they were bought by Rite Aid. Believe it or not, I was working in a pharmacy.
Oh, wow.
And they were bought by Rite Aid. In order to keep my job, I would have had to have moved to Pennsylvania. Nothing against Pennsylvania, but that's a far distance from Michigan. So I'm like, oh, forget this. I'm going to just go down and become a chiropractor too.
Wow.
So that's what happened.
Wow.
That's why I became one. Yeah, it
Wow.
really improved my health instantly.
That's amazing. And so now you want to be able to do that for others, which I'm sure you've done over the last 20 years.
Yeah, it's wonderful. And the thing that kind of pivoted me into the digestive work is while I was in school, in chiropractic school, I was among the best shape of my life. I was one of the few students that actually lost weight going through school versus my classmates were all gaining weight, which is easy to do because you're studying. At any rate, one of my professors was a natural hygienist as well as a chiropractor, and he conducted my first supervised water-only fast, where I just had water for 8 days. And
oh my gosh!
The reason why I did that was because, despite the fact that I was in the best shape of my life and eating the best, I felt awful. Meaning, I would have horrible, painful bloating, stabbing pains in my belly. And I would be bent over at my desk during class thinking, what is going on with me? Like, I'm doing a lot right. Why do I feel so awful? Long story short, I wasn't digesting my food properly, and I was eating tons of fruits and vegetables, which are good for you. But if you cannot digest them, they can create a lot of pain. And a lot of patients that I see to this day will say similar things, that they can't have salad because it tears them up. I hear it all the time, and I relate because it happened to me too. So that's why I water only fasted, and I put that at the back of my cap, and I said, this digestion thing, I'm going to have to keep paying attention to this in practice if I don't, see like I'm helping people enough with chiropractic. And sure enough, that's what happened. People were coming in with constipation and diarrhea and Crohn's, and I wasn't able to help them with chiropractic alone. And so that's when I started to incorporate my digestive stuff.
Wow, that's awesome. So how long have you been doing both the chiropractic and the digestive
Yeah,
information?
so it's been 13 years that I've been doing the digestive, and I still adjust patients. I'm still licensed, and I still have patients that I see for chiropractic, but it's not something that I do. I don't see new ones any longer. I refer those over to my brother, who's also a chiropractor across the street.
That's cool.
So, yeah, so that's convenient. But yeah, so my primary focus now is helping people all over the world who have Crohn's, colitis, constipation. Really, like my little slogan is helping people regain their freedom from the crappiest health conditions. That's what I do now.
I like that. So let me ask you then. So when a patient comes to see you for digestion issues, what's the biggest fear that you hear from them? Like, what are they afraid of?
Yeah, that's a great question. The number one reason that I do what I do is to help people get their freedom back. That's why I gravitated toward the Crohn's and colitis and diarrhea, because, Kim, so many people were coming to my office saying what your question is, saying that they are afraid to leave their house because they think that they're going to have an accident driving, or that they don't even go on an airplane to go see their grandkids because they're afraid they're going to have an accident while in the plane, or take up the bathroom and be embarrassed. So I happened to see that exact fear on my uncle, on his face, back in the mid-'90s. He left my grandmother's house, went to go run an errand, and then 5 minutes later he was back again. And I remember thinking, how could he be back so soon? And he came up the stairs to the apartment my grandma lived in. They lived together, obviously. And he was basically in tears, saying that he had lost control of his bowels. He said other words, but I'm making it PG version.
Yeah.
And I just never forgot how embarrassed and humiliated he was. So to your point, that's the thing that is the number one fear, is that exact thing. People are prisoners in their own homes because they don't know what the heck is going on. There's no rhyme or reason. They'll have something really good one day, feel great, and they'll have the same thing to eat a week later, and they have urgency to the point where they have to look where their bathroom is, and they carry extra pairs of clothes in their car as a result. So that's the big concern most people have that I work with.
Wow. So when somebody comes to see you because they're having these challenges, I'm assuming that you sit and do an intake. Does that require like a food diary, or what does that look like when somebody comes to see you for the first time?
Great questions, Kim. I'm loving these. Nobody asks me these. I love them. So, well, why I love that question so much is because it's such an important piece of being a good doctor, I feel, is that you're asking good detective, investigative type questions. So I'll ask the usual things, but then I go deeper and I'll say things like, what's a typical breakfast, or do you skip? Because most people tend to be creatures of habit, and they'll eat the same type of thing. So I don't need like a 7-day food log on that first visit that they're working with me for the consult. That will come later if they decide to work with me further. But in the original consultation, I'll ask them, what's a typical breakfast, or do you skip? What's a typical lunch, or do you skip it? What's a typical dinner, kind of a thing. But then I'll ask questions that are kind of like off track. They're not necessarily scripted for everybody, and that depends on that individual. So, for example, if somebody seems like they've got a lot that doesn't seem unusual to me, I'll dive into my intuition and I'll say things like, did you have a history of really traumatic childhood stress? I don't need details, but did you have a really traumatic childhood? Or, when was your last course of antibiotics? Or when was your last dental work? Like, all of these little things have significant relationship with what's happening to that person in this state. So as an example, the dental thing, that's not something I learned in school. That's something I learned by my intake and my questions that I ask, that there's a crazy correlation with dental work, whether it's a bridge, a root canal, whatever, with when the impetus was to that person having a digestive issue like Crohn's or colitis. It's very odd, but very much related. Mm-hmm.
Well, but you know what? That does make sense in a way, because I know that if, you've got challenges, they want you on an antibiotic prior to them doing dental work, because it can cause the dental work that they do can cause an infection.
Yeah,
so that's interesting.
You nailed it. Yeah, it's very interesting, and you got that right, because the most, I don't want to say dirty, but the most infected area of our body, it's not our rear ends, which many would think, it's actually our mouth. And
sure.
So that's why I'm a huge advocate of coconut oil pulling, which is just taking coconut oil and chewing it till it's liquid and swirling it around and chewing it for like 20 minutes. And that what that does is that oil will pull away the debris, the bacteria, the nastiness out of your teeth, your gums, and your tongue and your mouth, and just make sure you don't spit it into the drain, because it'll solidify and maybe clog up your drain.
Oh, yeah.
Spit it into the toilet or into the garbage can. But that's a healthy practice for your mouth, because it is so dirty.
Oh, wow, that's interesting. That's a great suggestion. So somebody comes to see you, you do an intake, you find out what the challenges are. Then what's next? Do you devise a plan for them? Do you have supplements that you recommend for them? Tell me what's next.
Yep, that's a wonderful question. So there are three possibilities or paths that I would go down depending on the severity of whatever that case happens to be. So as an example, just today I spoke with a mom regarding her 8-year-old daughter, and to me, I mean, I've been doing this for a while. It's not as significant of a stressor that her child is going through as some of my Crohn's, colitis, can't leave the house, diarrhea, and all that stuff. So in that case, if something is not super severe, now it might feel like it is to them, but for what I do, I can just recommend a couple of products and change up their diet, and for the most part, we're good to go. But path 2 and path 3, that's when I'm going to need to have some lab work. So the test that I do is a very specific urine test, and it tells me more information than stool and blood and hair and all of that, and most gastroenterologists don't even know about this test. It's a very rare test. And from that, I get a ton of information, such as how are they digesting their macronutrients or your fats, your carbs, your proteins. So if somebody is kind of medium stressed, I'll recommend that urine test. And then for my more extreme scenarios where the people that I'm working with they've been all over the place, they're getting no results, then I'd recommend my 12-week gut protocol, which is 12 weeks of working with me, which includes literally everything, all visits, any and all supplements are included for that 12-type week period. But make no mistake, the main thing that I'm doing is getting that urine panel, which is very rare, the information that it's getting. And that tells me all I need to know, because food allergy testing I used to do, not effective whatsoever. It just does not show you what's really happening.
That's really interesting because I know that that's the one thing that doctors will look at, like what is not agreeing with you? What are you basically, right? What are you allergic to that could be causing some of that upset in your intestinal area that's creating those symptoms? But you're saying that really doesn't get you the answers that you need.
It doesn't, and the reason for it is food allergies are sensitivities. These do exist. I'm not saying that it's 100% nobody has them. I'm not saying that. But what happens is when we're looking for what's showing up in the bloodstream, that undigested food is already leaked out past the microvilli in the intestine. So, of course, it's going to look like that's a problem. That specific food is going to look like the offending food. But it's not the offending food's fault for the most part. It's that it escaped it breached the gap, if you will. It was a leaky gut. It got through the intestinal villi, and that's the problem. Is we need to make sure that those intestinal villi are nicely, tightly together. So if you look at your hand, if you put your hand up and you have all your fingers touching each other, think of that as your villi. They should be like a tight fortress, like a huge defense. But if we spread our fingers open now and we see gaps, that's what happens when those villi are inflamed. So when there's inflammation that happens in the gut, specifically the intestines, now your fingers spread apart, and now you've got that opening where that food can now sneak into the bloodstream prematurely in its undigested state, kicking off a whole load of different types of symptoms, whether it's gas or bloat or diarrhea or constipation or nausea. Pick a symptom, it's coming from that. So things that create that opening, if you will, are things like genetically modified foods, pesticides, prescription drugs, too much sugar, too much alcohol. Even emotional trauma can do that. So that's why the food allergy testing I found anyway was not effective, is that we're looking after the effect versus what's happening before that whole process.
Interesting. So you bring somebody in, let's say they go through your 12-week protocol. Like, what's the biggest challenge that your patients have with the changes that you need them to make in their diets? Because I'm sure it's just not supplements. It's obviously what they're eating or a combination of foods. So what kind of challenges do your patients come up with, and how do you help them combat some of those?
Yeah, so when I have somebody on a diet, there's one of two possible diets I'll put my patients on based on how they tested on my exam and on that urine panel. So let me give you an interesting thing. If somebody can't properly digest fats, then I'm going to have them restricted from certain vegetables which surprise you because they're healthy. But if somebody can't digest fats, I would have them avoid things like cucumbers, cabbage, leeks, onions. Now, these are healthy, tremendous foods, but if somebody can't properly digest fats, which, by the way, is the hardest of the three macros to digest, so macros are carbs, proteins, and fats. Fats are the very hardest to digest because there's a lot of stuff that has to occur within the liver to make them available to be used. Essentially, we got to degrease fats and make them water soluble, and that's a tremendous burden on the body. So if somebody can't digest fats, I have them avoid even healthy foods. So that's the thing, is to your point, the most difficult thing is people don't know what they should eat. But when they work with me, they have the confidence because I'm telling them exactly what you should eat based on how they test. So as that example is used about fats, these people might be off of cabbage and pumpkin and apples and stuff like that for just 2 weeks, you see. So whether it's a specific carbohydrate diet or the ketogenic diet, I mean, don't get me started. There's so many things I have to say about the ketogenic diet. But anyway, and none of which are positive. But the thing of it is we need to make sure that we're getting energy from our food. And whatever diet somebody is on, what I will always say is what matters most is, can you digest it? Because that's, in fact, what I'm testing for. So it matters most to me, can you digest what it is you are eating? And if not, I need to give you certain areas of your body a little bit of a break point, or like a little bit of a rest or a vacation for 2 weeks, and then we can add some other foods back. So the most difficult thing before they see me is they don't know what they should eat. Once they work with me and I tell them what diet to be on, the most difficult question just might be something like, how long do I have to do this?
Yeah.
You know, my husband or my spouse eats differently. It's hard. What do I do when I go out to eat? And we always make modifications. And I'm very, very understanding of life and flexibility. And for example, holidays, I tell people, enjoy yourself. Eat whatever you want. Just don't eat as much of it, but enjoy yourself. Don't be so stressed about that. Your body will be okay. I think that people are so used to being so strict that when they work with me, I'm kind of like opening things up a little bit more than they were used to. As an example, the FODMAPs diet is very strict. And so I might tell people, no, I want you eating those things. And they're like, but I didn't think I was supposed to have any grain. I'm like, you could have oat bran. It's okay. So I think that's the thing, is they're just confused. That's probably the thing, is to get them to rethink and go about something in a new way. That might be the most difficult thing, I would say.
And I think it's hard because, and part of it is you don't know what you don't know, right? So if you've been eating the same thing all the time, you might not be able to tell exactly what it is that's irritating you or giving you those symptoms. So when you do a 2-week rest from some of those things that could be causing the challenges, they probably don't even realize like how good they can feel either.
Yeah, that's a great point that you bring up. And also, I didn't really say this, but the reason why I would have somebody avoid apples or cucumbers or cabbage or any of those is because there are certain foods, even plants like those foods, that they make the liver work a little bit harder. Meaning when we eat them, it makes that gallbladder constrict a little bit. So it's not that they're bad foods. It's just that they put more of a burden on that stressed organ, like the liver or the gallbladder in this example. But yeah, I mean, so many times people think, oh, I always eat this and it never bothered me. But that'd be like saying, my dad died at the age of 69 because he was just a massive alcoholic, and he drank from 10 a.m. on. He would look at the clock. Once it hit 10 a.m., in his head, he thought, okay, I can drink whatever I want now. It's early enough to start drinking. It's not too late. It's not too early. 10 o'clock's the right time. But the point I'm trying to make is he drank the same thing, Pabst Blue Ribbon, and it never bothered him for the first 20, 30 years, right? But then all of a sudden, now it started affecting his liver. And so there becomes an accumulation point that if somebody's eating a stressed food or a stressor or around a certain type of chemical stress or environmental stress, the body can only take so much before it can't handle it anymore.
Right. And so when you have them, you bring them in, you talk to them, you suggest a diet. Now, there are supplements that you recommend for them as well to kind of coincide with what your diet recommendations are?
Absolutely. So when patients work with me, I have them on approximately 4 formulas. I hardly ever go higher than that. One thing I could say to the listeners is that most people are taking too many supplements. Believe me, I have grocery bags come in here full, packed to the rim, full of like 15, 20, 18, it just depends. There's so many supplements people are taking, and it's ridiculous because they're just guessing. They don't know what they need or what they don't need. As an example, if I find and test somebody that cannot properly digest fat, but yet here they are taking a vitamin E, a vitamin D, a vitamin A. These are all fat-based vitamins. If somebody can't digest fat, but they're taking those fat-based vitamins, that's not helping them whatsoever, you see?
Right.
So the 4 formulas that I have them are based on what their test results say. One of them will be a food enzyme that they would take at the start of meals. The other 3 formulas are some kind of a digestive enzyme and or herbs and different types of whole food components, meaning from a bark, a root, a stem, a leaf. That's a whole complex nutrient versus synthetic things like you'll find in One A Day or Centrum or things like that, which are synthetic. They're just fragments of the whole plant.
Okay.
So we need to be eating whole complexes, not fragments.
Okay.
So 4 products. One's a food enzyme, and the other ones are some form of a healing enzyme, digestive enzyme, some kind of a herbal support that's going to help whatever that organ is.
Awesome. So share with us real quick one of your biggest success stories.
I can tell you the first one I think of right off the top is one of my patients is a teacher. At the time he was a teacher, now he's a private tutor. But he had spina bifida, so this is something that's congenital, happens when you're in utero. And it damaged his spinal cord and his growth so much so that his leg, one of his legs is about the size of his forearm as a grown man.
Wow.
It's about the size of his forearm, and the other leg is normal. So that injury that he was born with, right, created an abnormality in how he grew. And his symptom, because the nerves of his lower back control the colon, he had a lot of urgent diarrhea. And it was a concern because he's teaching. You don't have much time between classes to get to the bathroom. You don't want to be speaking to your children, and all of a sudden you have to go, right?
Right.
So I did not know how well I was going to be able to help somebody that had a literally nerve-involved injury. But when I gave him the proper nutrition, all of his diarrhea, all that stuff was gone. He never had to worry about that ever again. And so that was easily my most fascinating story, because I was up against some, congenital anomalies here that it didn't matter. The right nutrition is what helped correct that as well.
Wow. And and people, I just don't think that they understand that. And I think, you can speak to this point too, but I think that we don't get the nutrition that we used to get out of things like we used to. Like, times have changed. The way that they grow the crops, the way that they process our foods, the amount of processed foods that we eat, we just don't get that nutrition that we need. So I think people need to come and see somebody like you, because they need to understand exactly what they're eating, how they're eating it, because we're not getting everything out of it that we need to. And your body needs to work as efficiently as possible.
100%. And the phrase, you are what you eat, that phrase,
Yeah.
you are what you eat, is very wrong. It's you are what you digest. And to your point, Kim, just because you eat something that's healthy doesn't mean your body is actively and effectively breaking it down, transporting it, utilizing it, all of that. So the better statement is you are what you digest. And it's really, if I could just say, it's really all about energy, because no matter what, you have 6 components to food, and that is you have carbs, you have proteins, you have fats, you have vitamins, you have minerals, you have enzymes. Enzymes are not probiotics. Probiotics are bacteria. Enzymes are special proteins. But those are the 6 components to what makes up food. Nutrition is the science of food, right? So nutrition is where it's all at. And so if we're talking about giving the body energy, we need to be looking at carbs, proteins, fats, because out of those 6 things, only 4 give you energy. And that is carbs, proteins, fats, and enzymes. And what I'm saying to your listeners is that vitamins and minerals, they don't give you energy at all. Yes, they're important, but they're not the big heavy hitters like those other 4. So if we're not eating enough of a nutrient, case in point, ketogenic people who are ketogenic nonstop, 24/7, 365, this is dangerous, because you need to get energy from carbohydrates. That's what it's meant to be. Carbohydrates are the easiest to digest. So when I start seeing patients more and more and more who have been on the ketogenic diet for months and months and months and months, it's never a shock to me that they're so sickly, because they're avoiding fruit as if fruit is dangerous.
Right.
And it's just not the way it is. So to your point of, we need to be better about eating organic and maybe even take part in farming in our own backyard, so we control what's going on with the soil and stuff like that. But we also need to make sure that we're not eliminating a macronutrient because it's trendy right now.
That's right.
That's the thing that's scary for me, is seeing what people are doing because they think they're doing something right, but they're doing something dangerous.
That's right. All right. Well, tell us, where can people find you? What's your website? Where can they find you?
Sure. My website is thedigestiondoctor.com.
Okay.
Thedigestiondoctor.com, all spelled out. And they can find me at thedigestiondoc, pretty much on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. And then also my podcast, and that's Smart Digestion Radio.
All right, great. All right, well, thank you so much, Christine, for joining us today. I appreciate you taking your time out of your very busy schedule to be with us. Thank you.
It's always a pleasure. Thank you, Kim. I love speaking with you.
Me too, you. All right, if you have any questions or comments, or would like to know more about the guest on our show today, or information about Hello Gorgeous, feel free to contact me at kbecker@hellogorgeous.org, or visit our website at www.hellogorgeous.org. We invite you to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and download our mobile app. Thank you so much for joining us today on Hello Gorgeous, Everything Beauty, Cancer, and Inspiration. I'm your host, Kim Becker, and until next time, stay gorgeous.